The air was thick with the smell of sweat and fear. August 16, 1977, was a day that would change the world, but not in the way anyone expected. At around 2 p.m., paramedics Ulysses Jones and Charlie Crosby were dispatched to Graceland, the grand mansion of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. As they drove through the gates, a sense of dread washed over them. They knew something was terribly wrong. When they reached the second floor, a bodyguard hurriedly directed them to the bathroom. The scene that greeted them was chaos. A man lay on the bathroom floor, surrounded by a group of frantic people. Among them were Elvis's girlfriend, Ginger Alden, and his road manager, Joe Esposito. The man was on his back, his pajama bottoms around his knees and his top open, revealing dark, almost black, folds of cold flesh. Jones dropped to his knees and checked for signs of life. There were none. The body was in a state of rigor mortis, but the police report later stated that the man was unconscious. Jones and Crosby exchanged a look. They didn't recognize the man. They were certain it wasn't Elvis. They were warned to keep quiet, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. Back in the 1970s, news traveled fast, especially when it involved a legend like Elvis. By the time the word spread, thousands of mourners had gathered outside Graceland. The scene was surreal. People wept openly, and the air was thick with grief. In just 24 hours, Elvis had been declared dead, autopsied, embalmed, and returned to Graceland for viewing. The speed of it all was staggering. 16 white Cadillac limousines and a white hearse had been arranged, along with a massive security detail. It seemed impossible that all of this could have been planned so quickly. Elvis's cousin, Gene Smith, was one of the first to view the body. He stood there looking at the man in the casket. The hands were smooth, not calloused like Elvis's, who had been a karate master. The sideburns were odd, sticking out straight, and the hairline looked like it had been glued on. Gene didn't believe it was Elvis. He wasn't alone in his doubts. Tanya Tucker, a famous country star, also attended the viewing and later stated on national TV that the man in the casket wasn't Elvis. The discrepancies didn't end there. Elvis had always expressed his desire to be buried next to his mother, but instead, he was placed between the plots allocated for his father and grandmother, leaving an empty plot next to his mother. Why? For future use, perhaps. The name on the headstone was another red flag. Born as Elvis Aaron Presley, the headstone read, Elvis Aaron Presley. Some said Elvis had changed the spelling to match the Bible, but it seemed like a strange detail for someone who had gone to such lengths to fake his own death. The FBI had been tracking Elvis for years. Extortion attempts, complaints about his music, and the controversy surrounding his performances had all drawn their attention. The files released by the FBI spanned from 1956 to 1980, but half of them remained classified. What could be so top secret that the government didn't want the public to know? The rumors and conspiracy theories began to spread. Some said Elvis had faked his death to escape the pressures of fame. Others claimed he was in witness protection. The sightings started pouring in. Over 3,000 reported sightings of Elvis alive and well, each one adding fuel to the fire. The story of Elvis Presley's life and death is a tapestry of mystery, intrigue, and unanswered questions. As I delve deeper into this enigma, I uncover a web of secrets and lies. The truth, if there is one, remains elusive. But one thing is clear. The world will never forget the king of rock and roll. The sun was setting on August 15, 1977, and Graceland Mansion was buzzing with activity. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was getting ready for a 12-day concert tour that was set to start the next day in Portland, Maine. Despite the busy schedule ahead, Elvis found time to spend with his daughter, Lisa Marie, who was on an extended vacation at Graceland. It seemed unusual that he would take so much time with her, knowing he had a long tour ahead. Some wondered if he had other plans, but no one knew for sure. That evening, Elvis called his dentist, Dr. Lester Hoffman, for an emergency appointment. He needed his teeth cleaned and a filling fixed. Elvis, along with his cousin Billy Smith, friend Charlie Hodge, and fiancée Ginger Alden, left Graceland around 10:30 p.m. They arrived at Dr. Hoffman's office, and Elvis, wearing his blue DA jogging suit, got the dental work done. The visit was uneventful, and by 12:30 a.m. they were back at Graceland. Elvis was in high spirits when he returned. He felt energetic and optimistic, full of plans for the future. At 4 a.m., he called Billy and his wife Joe to join him and Ginger for a game of racquetball. They played for about an hour, and during the game, Elvis accidentally hit himself on the shin with his racket. The injury left a mark, but it didn't seem to bother him too much. After the game, Elvis sat at the piano in the lounge area of the racquetball building and sang a few songs. His voice echoed through the empty mansion, a sign of his good mood. At 6 a.m., Elvis and Ginger went up to his bedroom. He changed into his powder blue pajamas, settled into bed, and started watching TV. He also read a book, trying to relax before the big day ahead. At 8 a.m., he told Ginger he was going to the bathroom lounge area to read. The bathroom had its own back entrance that led downstairs, a private space where he could be alone. Around 8 or 8:30 a.m., Elvis called Dr. Nishopoulos' office for some sleeping pills. The doctor wasn't there, but he spoke with the nurse. At 9:30 a.m., Elvis left the bathroom and went downstairs to sign for a special delivery letter from Paul Lichter, his tour manager. He then went to the porch to retrieve the morning newspaper. For the next few hours, no one saw or heard from him. At 2:30 p.m., Ginger woke up and made some phone calls. She remembered that Elvis had gone into the bathroom lounge area earlier to read. Worried, she went to check on him. When she entered the room, she found Elvis's body on the floor in front of the commode. He was in a kneeling position, his head down and his face on the carpet. Ginger was devastated and immediately called down to Al Strada, Elvis's friend and employee, who was in the kitchen. Al came upstairs, and then he called Joe Esposito, Elvis's friend and staff manager. They quickly realized something was wrong, and called Dr. Nishopoulos. Joe noticed that rigor mortis had already set in, a sign that Elvis had been dead for some time. At 2:33 p.m., the rescue unit arrived at Graceland. The medics continued CPR, but the body showed signs of rigor mortis and lividity, indicating that Elvis had been dead for several hours. At 2:48 p.m., the body was transported to Baptist Memorial Hospital. By 2:56 p.m., the body arrived at the hospital, reportedly dead on arrival. The news spread quickly, and at 3 p.m., family and friends were informed of Elvis's death. At 3:30 p.m., the fans and public were told the sad news. The rest of the day was a blur of activity. Family and friends gathered at Graceland, trying to come to terms with the loss. At around 7 p.m., the body was being prepared for an autopsy. The world had lost one of its greatest icons, and Graceland would never be the same. The night of August 15, 1977, was anything but ordinary for Elvis Presley. By 7:30 p.m., the medical examiner had completed the initial body inspection, noting the condition of the body and any signs of injury. At 8 p.m., Dr. Nishopoulos and Dr. Francisco, the medical examiner for Shelby County, held a press conference to discuss their findings. Elvis had a dentist appointment scheduled for 10:30 p.m., but he showed up much later, around 12:30 to 1:30 a.m. This was unusual, as a routine dental visit shouldn't take more than a couple of hours. Some wondered if Elvis had other business to attend to, or if there was more to the story. Another strange detail was that Elvis wore his DA jogging suit to the dentist. Law enforcement personnel typically don't wear their uniforms off-duty, raising questions about why Elvis chose this outfit. If Elvis had a filling done and his teeth cleaned, he would have likely been given Novocaine or another pain reliever. Despite this, he seemed to have a lot of energy afterward, playing racquetball and singing. This seemed odd, as dental procedures can be uncomfortable and tiring. Moreover, Elvis knew his concert tour was about to start, so why did he decide to get dental work done on that particular night? It's possible he had some anxieties about the upcoming tour. Dentists are usually cautious when treating patients with heart conditions, often starting them on antibiotics to prevent infections. There are no records of Elvis receiving such treatment, which is strange if he had a known heart condition. Ginger Alden, Elvis's fiancée, noted that Elvis changed into powder blue pajamas before bed. However, when the body was found in the bathroom, the pajamas were described as having a blue top and gold-yellow bottoms. This discrepancy has fueled theories that the person in the bathroom wasn't Elvis. Elvis left the bathroom area to sign for a special delivery letter from Paul Lichter. It's unclear why he signed for it himself, especially since he had staff who could have handled it. The mail carrier that day was also different, and the signature on the receipt didn't match any known postal worker. This has led to speculation that the carrier was part of a plan to bring in a different body. The letter Elvis received was a loving goodbye, suggesting that the sender wanted to ensure Elvis received it before he left. It's possible the letter was meant to provide comfort and reassurance. The next morning, Elvis was seen picking up his newspaper from the porch. If he had taken sleeping pills, it's strange that he was awake and active. Some theorized that the pills were never taken, or that Elvis was following a plan. Ginger woke up between 2 and 2:30 p.m. and noticed Elvis was gone. She made phone calls, but didn't seem concerned about his absence. This has led to questions about whether she knew about a plan. When the body was found, it was described as being in fixed rigor mortis and lividity, which would take 8 to 12 hours to set in. This suggests the person had been dead for a while. The positioning of the body, either in front of the commode or in a chair, raised more questions. Why didn't Elvis use the intercom or phone for help if he was in distress? Dr. Nishopoulos ordered that no drugs be administered for revival, which seems unusual. Vernon, Elvis's father, didn't go to the hospital with the body, which is odd for a grieving parent. Joe and Dr. Nick identified the body instead of the next of kin, adding to the mystery. On August 17th, the body was brought back to Graceland for a private family viewing. The public viewing followed, with the body dressed in a white suit, blue shirt, and dark blue tie. Elvis's hairdresser reportedly dyed the hair back to black, which is strange given that Elvis was meticulous about his appearance. Why would he let his hair turn gray before a concert tour? Vernon called fan club presidents and personal friends, asking them not to attend the funeral. This is puzzling, as a grieving father would likely want support. The body was later changed into a pale blue suit, which is difficult to do with a stiff body in rigor mortis. Funeral services were held at Graceland instead of a church, which is unusual for a religious person like Elvis. The procession included 16 white Cadillac limousines, a detail that has sparked theories about the song Mystery Train. Gene Smith, Elvis's cousin, described the body in the coffin as having hands that weren't Elvis's. The hands were smooth and small, unlike Elvis's rough, calloused hands. The sideburns and hair were also described as being glued on. Gene suggested it might have been a wax dummy, which would explain the heavy weight of the coffin. The coffin, weighing around 900 pounds, was too heavy for just a body. A wax dummy would need additional weight to be convincing. Some theories suggest that dry ice was used inside the coffin to keep the wax from melting, which would also explain why no one heard anything. The funeral procession left Graceland around 2 p.m. on August 18th, with a white Cadillac hearse followed by 16 white limousine. The 5 official pallbearers were joined by 5 others, making a total of 10. The weight of the coffin and the unusual details surrounding the funeral have left many wondering if Elvis's death was what it seemed. Hours after Elvis's body was found, a team of 9 doctors conducted the autopsy. Dr. E. Eric Muirhead led the team. They found no signs of stroke or heart failure, but they did see signs that Elvis had been sick with diabetes and constipation for a long time. There were also signs that he might have used drugs for a long time, but they needed to run more tests to be sure. After the autopsy, Elvis's body was sent to the funeral home. At 8 p.m. that same day, a press conference was held. Dr. Jerry Francisco, who wasn't even part of the autopsy team, announced that Elvis had died from a cardiac arrhythmia, which is a problem with the heartbeat. He said it was heart failure, and that drugs were not a factor. But this didn't match what the actual autopsy team found. They thought drug addiction was a probable cause, but they weren't sure yet. Elvis was known to be about 250 pounds when he died, but the autopsy report said he weighed only 170 pounds. The autopsy results were sealed for 50 years and won't be released until 2027. Why would they keep this a secret? 3 years after Elvis's death, his doctor, Dr. George Nishopoulos, was charged with giving Elvis and other patients too many drugs. In the 7 months before Elvis's death, he had been prescribed more than 10,000 pills, including sedatives, amphetamines, and narcotics. After Elvis died, an inventory was made of his estate, but some things were missing. The president of the Elvis Presley fan club noticed that Elvis's diaries, photos of his mother and daughter Lisa Marie, and a lot of his jewelry were not listed. Even some of his cars and a plane were missing. It didn't make sense. Why would these things be gone? Elvis's last will, made in March 1977, named his father, Vernon, as the executor and trustee. Lisa Marie was his only heir. But in the months before Elvis's death, 2 life insurance policies were cashed in, and $1 million was taken from a secret checking account. A third insurance policy, which wasn't paid up, has never been cashed in. Bill Bixby made a documentary called The Elvis Files in 1991. One guest, author Gail Brewer Giorgio, believed Elvis was still alive. She thought the misspelling of Elvis's name on his gravestone was a numerology trick. Another bizarre detail was that Elvis's signature appeared on his medical examiner's report, which didn't make sense. But the most shocking evidence came from DNA. A tissue sample from a biopsy Elvis had in 1975 didn't match the DNA from his 1977 autopsy. This was a major news story, and an independent test confirmed the same result. The person autopsied was not Elvis Presley. When Fox News asked Lisa Marie for a DNA sample to confirm, she declined. Sightings of Elvis began on the day he reportedly died. A black helicopter landed at Graceland and took off soon after. Later, a man who looked like Elvis bought a one-way ticket from Memphis to Buenos Aires, using the name John Burroughs, a name Elvis sometimes used. On New Year's Eve 1977, a visitor to Graceland took a photo of Elvis sitting by the pool, looking well. Kodak confirmed the photo wasn't tampered with. Another sighting in 1984 showed Elvis in a newspaper photo with Muhammad Ali and Jesse Jackson. Ali reportedly said, "That's my friend Elvis." There are also audio recordings of Elvis singing and impersonating himself. One famous impersonator, Johnny Hara, appeared on the Merv Griffin show, and many people thought it was actually Elvis. Maria, the president of the Elvis Presley fan club, received a mysterious tape. The person on the tape sounded like Elvis and said, "People ask me all the time where I'm living, but I can't say. It's a good place to hide. It started when I arrived in Hawaii. I made arrangements with a friend, and everything worked like it was meant to be. I learned about this island a long time ago, and I knew I might have to use it someday." These stories and sightings keep the mystery of Elvis's death alive. Was he really gone, or did he find a way to disappear? Elvis's life after his supposed death has been a mystery that has sparked countless theories and debates. Some say he faked his death and went into hiding, living a secret life away from the fame and pressure. One of the most intriguing stories comes from a woman named Gail Brewer Giorgio, who claimed to have received a phone call from Elvis himself in 1988. The call was bizarre and filled with hints and veiled statements, leaving many to wonder if it was really Elvis or just a clever impersonator. Gail's interest in Elvis's life and death began when she wrote a novel about a singer who faked his death. The novel was mysteriously recalled by her publisher, which led her to investigate Elvis's death more closely. She eventually published a book called The Most Incredible Elvis Presley Story Ever Told, which suggested that Elvis was still alive and had been living under the name Orion. According to Gail, a singer named Jimmy Ellis had been impersonating Elvis as Orion, but she claimed that Ellis was not the real Elvis. She believed that Elvis had been the actual singer behind the Orion recordings, and that Ellis had been lip-syncing. The phone call Gail received in 1988 added fuel to the fire. The caller, who claimed to be Elvis, talked about drugs, his family, and even joked about being a grandfather. He also mentioned a major shock and a meltdown, which some interpreted as hints about his supposed faked death. The call was full of moments that seemed to confirm Gail's theories, but it also had plenty of ambiguous statements that left room for doubt. Elvis's interest in law enforcement and his meeting with President Nixon in 1970 also contribute to the mystery. Before he became a famous singer, Elvis had always dreamed of becoming a police officer. He even had a collection of law enforcement badges. In 1970, he wrote a letter to President Nixon, expressing his concern about drug culture and his desire to help the country. He flew to Washington and met with Nixon, where he was given an honorary DA badge. Some believe that Elvis's involvement with the DA was more than just honorary, and that he was a secret agent working undercover. The story of Elvis's possible secret life is filled with twists and turns. Gail's books and the mysterious phone call provide a glimpse into a world where Elvis might have escaped the pressures of fame. However, the truth remains elusive, and the mystery of Elvis's death continues to captivate fans and skeptics alike. Whether Elvis really did fake his death, or if it was all just an elaborate hoax, the legend of the King of Rock and Roll lives on. As the story of Elvis Presley unravels, it becomes clear that the King of Rock and Roll left behind more than just his music and legacy. The theories and speculations about his life and death continue to captivate and intrigue fans around the world. One of the most intriguing theories is that Elvis didn't die in 1977, but instead went into hiding, perhaps even becoming a pastor named Bob Joyce. Elvis's life was full of mysteries and controversies. He was a secret agent who provided high-level information on illegal drug trafficking to the FBI. This involvement put his life in danger, and it's believed that the threats against him might have led to his supposed death on August 16, 1977. On that same day, 4 members of a dangerous criminal group called the Fraternity were arrested. Coincidence? Many think not, but the story doesn't end there. Some believe Elvis was more than a twin. He was a triplet. His twin brother, Jesse, and another brother, Clayton, were allegedly given up for adoption. Later, Elvis found them and trained them to be his body doubles. This theory is wild, but it has its supporters who point to physical similarities and even a scar on one of the brothers' necks that matches a detail from Elvis's life. Then there's the story of Pastor Bob Joyce, a man who looks, sounds, and acts like Elvis. Bob is a pastor in Arkansas, and he's 85 years old, just like Elvis would be. He has the same scars, the same mannerisms, and even the same laugh. Bob never outright denies he's Elvis, and his sermons often contain hints and references that seem to suggest he's more than just a look-alike. He talks about leaving behind his old life and starting anew, much like the transformation Elvis might have gone through if he had truly faked his death. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is Bob Joyce's voice. When you listen to him sing, it's hard not to be moved. It's as if Elvis is still with us, just in a different form, spreading a message of faith and love. The question remains, is Pastor Bob Joyce really Elvis Presley? It's a mystery that might never be fully solved. But for those who believe, there's always a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the King is still out there, living a quiet life and sharing his light in a different way. Elvis's legacy continues to inspire and mystify. Whether he's gone or still with us, his music and spirit live on in the hearts of his fans. The story of Elvis Presley is far from over, and the search for the truth goes on.